Please welcome Drea.
I don't have a punch card. Were we supposed to for how many times we've told?
I keep forgetting them in the car.
Oh, sorry. Good evening, welcome. So I'm also going to tell you two stories. One is very short, it's also very old. It actually goes back to before 1971. It goes back to 1967. And this is the first story I ever told, but that's what I've actually been told. I was 3 at the time, but this is the story my siblings and my parents always swore that I told. And it was about the crab family. There was once a crab family. There was a mama crab, there was a papa crab, there was a brother crab, and there was a baby crab. And one day, the brother crab said, "Let's have a picnic at the beach." And so the mama crab made a picnic, the basket, and the papa crab carried it, and the brother crab ran ahead, and the baby crab lagged behind a little because it was a big crab. And when they got to the sand, they had their picnic, and it was lovely. And then the baby crab said, "Let's go swimming." And so the papa crab and the mama crab got into the water, and the baby crab and the brother crab got in the water, and they played and they played, and then the sharks came. Yeah, that's the end. No one in my family found that unusual, by the way. Yeah, didn't leave the orchard at all, did I? Anyway, so the next story, I think this is why I'm right before the intermission.
Could be.
It could be, yeah. And there's a Leslie component to this story in that when I told it years ago at Telebration, Leslie was there, and he said, "What's the story you're going to tell?" And I told him. And he immediately sort of made a little rhythmic dance out of a little song out of the title. And the title is The King, the Cook, and the One-Legged Chicken, to which Leslie immediately went, "The king, the cook, the one-legged chicken, the king, the cook, the one-legged chicken." And he's got a lot more rhythm than I do, so it was a lot cooler to watch him do it. So, but it was a wonderful Leslie moment for me. Just, he took something I had and just made it a dance. So, and I think Middle Woman lives here, by the way, just so you know, in the kingdom that I'm going to talk about.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because there once was a kingdom that was famous for absolutely nothing. It had high mountains, but there were other places with higher mountains. It had many valleys that were picturesque, but you could find others elsewhere. Its mines contained jewels, but what mines don't? The fields were beautiful. They gave plenty of food. But whose fields don't? That's what I'm saying. Nothing amazing about this place whatsoever. The king was not a tyrant, nor was he the most benevolent, but at the same time, still a nice guy. He was no Solomon, but he wasn't a fool. He was just a king of just a kingdom. But there was one thing. So perhaps I lied a little there. There was one thing this kingdom was known for, and that was the king's cook. This was the sort of man who would go and get one small thing and create a feast, and it would be delicious. There was once a winter that went on so long and so fierce that all the food was gone except for a piece of beef jerky and an onion. And the cook made a red flannel hash that lasted for days, and the leftovers were delicious. Now, it helped that the king usually ate alone, because he really didn't want to share this cook, and that's probably why no one ever heard of him. But he was the best cook around, so you keep him to yourself too. And the cook normally made a nice mild, nice slight repast for the king, you know, usually like a chicken or a side of beef and a salad and some pasta and some potatoes and some rice and maybe some brownies for a little dessert while he's getting the real dessert ready. You know, a little small thing. Well, one day, he puts a chicken in the oven. Before he puts it in the oven, he stuffs the inside with the giblets and with rice and also with some lemons. He packs this bird beautifully with all these herbs, and he covers it with rosemary and fennel. And as it cooks, the kitchen smells awesome. Now, it was his habit to take just a tiny little bite out of everything he made for the cook, because after all, or for the king rather, because after all, it was for the king and it had to be perfect. And so when this chicken came out and it still smelled awesome, he took his knife and made just a little cut into the thigh, just at the drumstick there, just to take a little tiny bit, and he tasted it. This is where it gets a little unbelievable. He had cooked the perfect chicken. I know, but it's true. He did. Swear to God, angels started singing. He had to have more. He couldn't even think of not having more. He had to have more. And so he took his knife and he went back to that thigh and he just completely cut the drumstick off and ate it, and it was gone in about 30 seconds. Didn't matter how hot that was. It was so good. And you know, for your last meal, you want it to be something good. Because that's when it sort of occurred to him that, yeah, that's probably what this was. And you know, going out on a high note, but still, this is not going to be good. But he had an idea. And he took that chicken, and he removed the lemons, but he put back in the rice and the giblets, and oh my God, they smelled so good still. And he set it on another bed of rice, because, you know, what's a meal without a good starch? And around the chicken, he put red rose potatoes, of course. And he took the largest potato and stuck it where that drumstick had been. And he put a sprig of rosemary into it, so it sort of looked like he now had drumsticks. And the underchefs and everyone took out the smaller dishes in front of him. So, you know, the warm spinach salad and the noodles and the biscuits that he made with a little rosemary butter. So this is good. I think he would have got them at Trader Joe's. That's where they used to have. They stopped making them, so he had to make these himself. But carried it all out, bowed before the king, put the platter in front of him, and left. And the king, of course, well, he ate all the spinach, and he ate most of the noodles, and he ate most of the rice that was around this chicken. And then he started in on the chicken, and there was no stopping. And he just started spooning out those giblets. They were so delicious. He was eating the whole chicken, skin, wings, Pope's nose, the whole thing. And once he finished, he started cracking the bones to suck out the marrow. And that's when he realized there was a drumstick missing. And you may think maybe he should have noticed that before. But you know, he's not the stupidest man, but he's also not the smartest man, so maybe he didn't quite count to 2 quickly enough before starting to eat it. But when he realized he was missing a bone, that was a drumstick bone, he realized. And he called for the cook to be brought before him in iron chains. And they brought the cook before him. And you know, the cook was aware this was probably his last meal, but at the same time he had been thinking. You can't be a good cook without thinking, and he'd been thinking this entire time because he figured the rosemary roast probably wasn't going to work, and it didn't. So the king said, "What do you have to say for yourself?" And the cook said, "Sir, I don't know what to say. The guards came in, they put me in chains. I still don't know what has happened." And the king said, "I may not be the smartest, but I can still count to 2, and there's a drumstick missing." And the cook said, "But that's impossible." And no, see, there's the drumstick. Well, it's broken, but you can see where the drumstick is. What are you talking about? It's like there was only 1. There should have been 2. And the cook said, "No, sire, this bird only had 1 leg." And the king said, "You served me a defective chicken?" And the chef said, "Oh, sire, this was no chicken. Did that taste like a chicken? Honestly, have you ever had a chicken that good?" And it's true. It really was that good a chicken. You didn't think it was chicken. He said, "Okay, fine, but what kind of bird was it?" "Sire, have you never been to the waterside and seen the birds there?" And the king said, "I've seen many birds at the water. What are you talking about?" "If I could only show you, sire." And so indeed, the king said, "Very well." And there was quite a progression going out. Guards in front, cook in chains, guard behind, king. All the court now were interested, because if the cook was dying, there was a problem. And they're all standing out there, and it was now just about sunset. And there's all the waterfowl out there curled into itself and standing on one leg. You couldn't even see the other. And the cook looked at the chickens, looked at the birds, looked at the king, and ta-da! And the king looked at the birds, and again, no fool, but no Solomon, but no fool. And he put his hands together, and I don't have royal enough, mighty enough hands to do this. So if everyone could help with one big clap, 1, 2, 3. And of course the birds were a little startled by that royal clap, and so they started to wake up, and the leg came down. And the king looked over at the cook. And the cook looked back at the king and said, "Sire, if only you'd done that at the table!" And the king thought, "Okay, we'll play." And he let him live. But he also said, "That doesn't happen again." Cook said, "All right." But then again, it was the one perfect chicken. That was never going to happen again. It was never a concern. But perhaps I lied about 2 things about this kingdom. Because certainly they were known for that cook, and they were also known for one thing, for they were the first to do this. And that was, when coming upon something surprising, amazing, and perhaps not believable, they all did what the king did. And so, from that point on, all of the world began to do this one gesture several times, every time they were presented with something unbelievable, incredible, or amazing. And I invite you to join me in doing that now.